Okay, good afternoon, namaste. Well, I've gotten kind of a long question here. So I'm just going to read this so that I can get all of it in as asked. So the question is, how does Kundalini flow after realization? Does it become less active? Is it felt in the whole body or merged with Shiva at the crown, or rests in the heart? Could you share the daily experience of enlightenment and the behavior of Kundalini after realization? Okay. Well, it is a vast difference after realization than when one is going through the process of Kundalini. So when realization takes place, that's why it's called being blown out. Okay, it's already gone through the whole of the system and it rests in the heart area. Okay, so your Kundalini at that point really becomes feeling like it's very still. Okay, every once in a while I'll have an episode where it'll just hit like boom, 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 just really, really strong pounding, boom, 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 from the bottom, and just, you'll feel this big whoosh going, going up the spine. But for the most part, it's still. Because the mind is still, Kundalini is also still. Doesn't mean that it's not there, it's not active. Of course, that energy is always there because that's the great I am. That's the great is. That's the great, part of what gives us our life, okay? But it is stilled. You no longer feel it running through the system. You're no longer doing kriyas. That's why the kriyas end. The kriyas are in place because Kundalini is moving through the system and moves the body into doing various mudras that take place, various yoga moves. And it's there to, when you're doing those moves, it's there to connect different energetic pathways. Okay? So when Kundalini starts to finally rest, it's resting because it's still mind. Again, this is why if I do energy work on somebody, it's very balancing because there's a stillness, there's a balance here. So anytime you work on someone, it brings them into more balance. Okay, starts to release things for them and bringing them to a balance. So yes, it's very, very different after realization than it is in the midst of the journey. Now, right after, right after realization, again, it takes about maybe 4 or 5 years after that, at least in the case here. It took about 4 or 5 years to settle, everything to finally settle. And just before it finally totally settled, there was a great burst of Kundalini that came forward. And the kriyas were so strong, it was almost throwing me around the room. I mean, it was just that last burst of that energy releasing. Okay. But again, once that's done, for the most part, it's very still. Okay. You're in stillness. The mind is still. The Kundalini is still. And that's what remains. Like I said, every once in a while, though, maybe once every 2-3 months or something, you'll get a very strong burst of just boom, 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 boom. You just feel it pounding at the bottom of the spine and going up. Yeah. That can be painful. Okay, because when it hits, it's like goes through your whole body. Okay, and but usually it's very just quiet, like the mind still remains in stillness. Okay, let's see what else. Okay, what is the daily experience of enlightenment? Okay, the daily experience of enlightenment is just you're in direct consciousness. Again, there's no mental spin. There's no, you're not inundated with thoughts like you are when you're in this feeling of ego identification, which gravitates to all these stories. The thought process doesn't mean you can't think, okay? Don't get me wrong. You're not sitting here like a, no. What needs to come just comes to the surface, but there's no hearing of thoughts. You're not aware of hearing of thoughts any longer. None of that takes place. You're just in this quietude, in a very balanced state, okay? In the beginning, when things fell away, there was still this consciousness of remaining in the heart, this very conscious state. And was a very conscious state of remaining in the heart, and you're doing what's called the seeing without seeing. Every movement of a leaf or a tree would feel as bliss, this rising bliss. Does it take place now? No, because I'm not consciously remaining in the heart. One is submerged there. If I wanted, if there was the desire to do that, it's easy to stay in the heart center, see from the heart. But now the activity is more just being in flow with what the rest of life has, and also working with people. It's easy to get in a bliss state. Okay, that's easy to get to, but really to work with others, I need to be very grounded. Grounded is better. Otherwise, if I'm in that very big bliss state, that bhava, and that's just rising, and it's just, it's wonderful. You feel high, you feel, you're like half connected with the universe. It's just, it's a great state to feel, okay? But it's not as grounded, okay? Again, easy to do. It just takes putting the consciousness in the heart center and just totally allowing it to be there, okay? And then your focus is so in that heart center consciousness that the eyes are registering a world, but you're not actively projecting into the world, holding these objects that you're seeing. They go across like a visual screen. It's very hard to try to explain this so people can understand what it's like, because it's beyond an intellectual thing. But I'll try, trying to explain it as well as possible, what takes place. But yeah, if I sit here in that, see, I immediately start going, and you connect with that. So, Kundalini's still going, but it's so subtle that it's, and when I'm going into that heart center, yeah, you can get lost in it, Okay, it's very easy to get lost in it at that point. And then it's just, at that point, then if I remain absolutely immersed in that, then it's very difficult for me to access duality language. Then the language changes, because rather than say I, it's more like, see, I can't. Oh. You go into more of the language like this one. And it's not done on a conscious level attempting to put that into place to sound something different. It just naturally occurs because you are so at that point locked into non-duality, the reality of non-duality. Okay. So it feels very foreign to say me or I. Okay. So, yeah, this is why I don't consciously remain in the heart center all the time. Because if I did, you're very, everything is so much more expansive. And you would notice a big shift in the speech. Like if you go, some people have seen some of the things that was writing in the God Realized site. And it's more, it's tougher to deal with people's daily problems when one is that expansion. Okay. So anyway, that's, in the state of realization, one can be in bhava easily. If you remain in the heart center, that's seeing without seeing, this naturally arises, and it can be all-encompassing. But again, if I'm dealing with people, then I have to stay in a more grounded, more I guess you could say compressed state, more of a compressed state, so that I can be in their level, okay, of being able to speak of and accessing duality to aid them to go forward. Otherwise, it's just, it's like speaking in the Ashtavakra Gita or the Vivekchudamani, okay? It's just very expanded states of, what it is, that I am not this body, I'm not this, there's, you don't feel like you're a body form at all, okay? So, but that's not going to help anybody that I'm working with if I am in that expansion all the time, okay? Then it's more difficult to access. Does one feel emotions? Yes, absolutely. And it's even, I would say, stronger emotions than when one is in the ego form. And why is that? Because it's pure emotion, okay? It's not cut with anything. Okay, so yes, one feels emotion. But there are certain emotions, certain things one no longer can access, like this feeling of hatred towards anyone. It's not possible. That's no longer possible to go in. You can be very angry at situations, at things that take place. That can be there, okay? But hatred, that type of thing, it's again, not possible. Yeah, and I can't think of anything else, what would be beneficial to say. Okay. One lives out the rest of the prarabdha karma. The body does what it does in the world, that's all. But one is that consciousness, not the form. So while the body plays out what it's going to do, the consciousness is something separate. And yeah. Okay. So hopefully that's answered and you haven't been more confused. Again, it's difficult to sit here and try to analyze and trying to pull apart what's there. trying to put it into some type of an intellectual categorization. Okay? Now that I've, again, if I go to speak about these things, the more of the non-duality too, it pulls me back into wanting to pull back into more of that, even though it's always there. I more try to stay projected outward, because if I go inward, again, you can get lost in it, and I could just be, Anyway. But this is why when there's a connection with a guru, such as myself, that's Kundalini, why there's a connection, it aids, there's a transmission that takes place. Okay, people are asking me sometimes about Kundalini activation and getting Shaktipat and this and that, and can I do it visually, can I do it by this, do that? They think it has to be some sort of a hands-on thing, or by phone, or it's not like that. It's if you're doing the practices and there's a connection between yourself and guru, it will activate. Okay, it can activate spontaneously. Okay, it's because there is a transmission that takes place. So that's it. It's a very simple thing. And those, again, that are doing the practices will start to access more of a still mind. And if they come to see me, they come and have darshan, they go more into still mind. It just, helps to aid to pull them into that. Is it something that one, as a guru, is consciously having to do? No. Okay, it's just by virtue of the fact that the consciousness that's here, when there is a connection, then the student is able to sometimes, I guess you could say, more tap into that, and they get shifts that take place spontaneously. Okay, it's the easiest way I can say that it happens. But yeah, so I'm going to leave this here. Hopefully it's answered your question. But thank you, and namaste. Have a great day.